How's it going, YouTube? Cody Bernardi here with another YouTube video. In today's video, I'm going to be going over the press release sent out by the Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA for short. So this is in response to the Baghdad airport attack done by the United States military against one of Iran's leading military generals. Now, I'm not going to get into any details. I don't know any details, obviously, but I'm not going to talk about any of that. I'm just going to focus on the release by the DHS. So the DHS came out with a statement in response, says, Washington, in response to reports of an increased cybersecurity threats, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, Director Christopher Krebs issued the following statement. CISA is aware of a recent rise in malicious cyber activity directed at United States industries and government agencies by Iranian regime actors and proxies. We will continue to work with our intelligence community and cybersecurity partners to monitor Iranian cyber activity, share information, and take steps to keep America and our allies safe. Iranian regime actors and proxies are increasingly using destructive wiper attacks looking to do more than just steal data and money. These efforts are often enabled through common tactics like spear phishing, password spraying, and credential stuffing. What might start as an account compromise where you think you might just lose some data can quickly become a situation where you've lost your whole network. In times like these, it's important to make sure you've shored up your basic defenses like using multi-factor authentication, and if you suspect an incident, take it seriously and act quickly. You can find other tips and best practices for staying safe online here. I'll put a link in the show notes. Anyone who has relevant information or suspects a compromise should immediately contact us at, and it's an email address. So let's go over this release by the DHS. So what they're referring to is an APT, which stands for Advanced Persistent Threat. Now, Advanced Persistent Threat, let's look up the definition of what that is. An advanced persistent threat is a stealthy computer network threat actor, typically a nation state or state-sponsored group, which gains unauthorized access to a computer network and remains undetected for an extended period. There are known APTs out there, and they're usually categorized by number. FireEye has a pretty nice database of APTs, which nations are associated with, and their TTPs, or tactics, techniques, and procedures. So in this case, they're talking about spear phishing, password spraying, and credential stuffing. Spear phishing is a phishing attack targeted at a specific individual. So I would send a malicious email with, an Excel spreadsheet saying, hey, can you validate that the data on this Excel spreadsheet is valid? I'll send it from an email address that looks pretty legit. I'll host it on a site that is trusted by Komodo or something like that. And you download that Excel spreadsheet, and it runs more than likely an O-Day that Microsoft hasn't developed a patch for. And it runs on the machine itself, and it could spread via like SMB or something like that. Now I'm going to pause the video real quick right here. It doesn't have to be a 0-day or an O-Day. There are plenty of remote code execution vulnerabilities in Excel that an attacker could use. They don't even have to be remote code execution vulnerabilities. Again, if you exploit a machine and they only have local privileges, they could chain that vulnerability and that exploit with a local privilege escalation vulnerability on the machine, and therefore create a situation where you have remote code execution on an admin account. On with the video. So that's what APTs typically do. They develop O-Days, they remain undetected, typically target specific industries. So APTs, let's look up the APT in question in regards to this specific release by CISA. In this case, it's APT 39, which is the Iranian Cyber Espionage Group. APT 39 facilitates lateral movement through tools such as Remote Desktop Protocol, Secure Shell, SSH, PSExec, REMCOM, and XCMD SVC. Custom tools such as Red Trip, Pink Trip, and Blue Trip have also been used to create SOC 5 proxies between infected hosts. In addition to using RDP for lateral movement, APT-39 has used this protocol to maintain persistence in a victim environment to complete its mission. APT-39 typically archives stolen data with compression tools such as WinRAR or 7-zip. Initial compromise, so this is kind of how they get into a network. So and maintain their persistence. So initial compromise, email compromise, phishing operation, stolen creds, web server compromise, establish foothold, cache money, clear ripe, PowBat, seaweed, web shells, escalate privileges, so Mimikatz, encrack, proc dump, Windows credential editor, internal reconnaissance, blue torch, custom scripts, and NBT scan, and complete the mission. It archives and exfils the data. So the whole attack is they access to a network through spear phishing, web server compromise, or stolen creds. Establish foothold, I don't recognize any of those, so I apologize. Escalate privileges, so let's say they compromise someone that works in finance, and finance has just local admin privileges. Well, if they want to get domain admin, they'll escalate privileges using something like Mimikatz or encrack. And then internal reconnaissance, blue torch, I don't know what that is. NBT scan, I've heard of it, but I've never really used it. And then complete its mission to exfil the data it needs. It compresses all the data, so think of it as like a zip file. They archive it using WinRAR and 7-zip, and they send it out to a C2, which is command and control. So what does that mean for you and your business? Well, we know what their TTPs are, tactics, techniques, and procedures. They do email compromise, phishing, stolen creds, and web server compromise. Let's start with phishing operations. So phishing operations, they send you a phishing email. If you have any suspicion that the email might be a phishing email, delete it. Report it to the email link down below. But businesses need to build controls to prevent things like this from happening, because people are a weak link in any business and any industry. You need to implement whitelists for email. So a whitelist is basically the opposite of a blacklist. Instead of banning websites bad, what are the only domain names that could email XYZ person? So if you're working for a government agency, or if you're working for anything that involves critical infrastructure, you probably shouldn't be receiving emails from an @gmail.com if it's not work related. So whitelisting could almost eliminate the phishing attack method. But again, APTs are highly sophisticated actors, and they could compromise an email address within the network and send an email within the network, and it's a trusted email. So again, like it lowers the attack surface, but it doesn't fully eliminate the attack. Stolen credentials. So it's really hard to say how you could prevent this. You know, you can make the longest password in the world, but if it's stored on a web server on a third party, and that web server gets breached and it stores the credentials in plain text, it doesn't matter if your password's 100 characters long, it's been stolen. So the best thing that you can honestly do is rotate passwords on a 90-day basis, or a frequent basis. I recommend 90 days. Pardon for the interruption again. So NIST actually removed the requirement for password rotation policies. They do not require that anymore, and it kind of makes sense because they want to enable end users to have stronger passwords, and forcing them to rotate passwords every 90 days actually ends up weakening passwords, because they want to remember one super long password, not a bunch of super long passwords, if that makes sense. I have attached the new NIST standards in the video. Check it out. It's pretty sweet. And if you don't know what NIST is, it's an awesome organization to take a look at. Put a link down to them in the show notes. Enable two-factor authentication wherever you can, whether that's a soft token or a hard token like a YubiKey. Definitely get 2FA everywhere you can if you're working in critical infrastructure or you're prone to attacks from an advanced persistent threat. And then web server compromise. I made a video previously about Equifax, and that their whole incident revolved around Apache struts. This is where the video I talked about previously, why you need to hire hackers to hack your business. Because when you hire ethical hackers, white hat hackers to hack your business, we will find things that are externally facing. So if you have a web server like an Nginx server that is way out of date and it's vulnerable to all these vulnerabilities, you bet that if your business is prone to attacks by an APT, they will get into your network via that method. So patch. Take everything off an externally facing IP address if it doesn't need to be on there, and patch and harden everything. Isolate that network from the internal network. There should be no pivot point from the external network to an internal network. And then we also have TTPs in here and IOCs. So use of Mimikatz, proc dump, Windows credential editor, and then WinRAR and 7-zip. If your business has no need to use WinRAR or 7-zip on the network, this is something where I'm trying to be vendor agnostic, but the only one I can think of right now is like CrowdStrike. If WinRAR or 7-zip is installed on your network and you know that WinRAR and 7-zip has no business need in your network, that should be flagged as a potential malicious host. And then moving laterally, SMB and RDP. So again, these are APTs, so they are developing ODAs, meaning that there's no patches for them. The vendor that makes that software is unaware of them. However, there's easy ways to move within a network laterally without spending the time and resources on developing ODAs. So like SMB, for example, you would use something like Eternal Blue, using that exploit to move laterally within a network. And with SMB, you can use a tool like Responder to steal credentials, the NTLM hashes, and run it through something like Hashcat and stuff like that. And then RDP, Bluekeep, there are patches for both of these vulnerabilities, so patch those ASAP. That's within your network, because that's how they move laterally. Moving laterally within a network means that, the way I could explain it is moving laterally. So if I compromise an external host and it's via RDP, and that RDP host has access to internal resources, I am now moving laterally and hopping through that network proxy, and then I can exploit vulnerabilities within the internal network and exfil all that data out of the network. Hopefully this video wasn't too confusing, and again, I'm not putting any personal opinions out there. This is just some things that you could take steps towards to preventing or help at least mitigating the risk of your business or agency or whatever from being attacked by this specific APT. So if you guys enjoy videos like this, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share this with at least 800,000 of your friends. I would greatly appreciate that. I see that I'm at like 191 subscribers now, which I swear like 2 months ago I was at 69 because I screenshot that. So thank you for sharing these videos. And stay tuned for more content like this. This is kind of like in my happy medium with a little bit of intelligence gathering and blue team stuff. So thank you for sharing this stuff, and stay tuned for the next episode.
Here we go again.